The armory was silent, save for the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Metal racks groaned under the weight of rifles and ammo, each weapon gleaming like a sliver of danger in the dim glow. She knelt on the cold concrete floor, her hands moving with deliberate precision, carefully wiping down the Barrett .50 sniper rifle. Oil glinted on her fingers, spreading in smooth strokes across the matte black barrel. To anyone watching, it looked like routine maintenance. But to her, it was intimate, a ritual of respect for the instrument of her quiet power. Around her, the SEALs buzzed with pre-mission energy. Boots thumped on concrete, knives clinked against armor, and low conversations drifted through the air like a tense storm. Most didn't notice her. They never did. Logistics officers weren't meant to be here in the thick of combat prep. They tracked inventory, not trajectories, but she lingered, absorbed in her task. She adjusted the scope, checking the zero one last time. Every tiny adjustment mattered. Every fraction of a millimeter could be the difference between hitting a target and missing it entirely. The SEAL commander entered the armory without announcement. A grizzled man with eyes like chipped flint, he carried the aura of countless battles fought and survived. His boots echoed in the empty space, his gaze sweeping the rows of weapons, then pausing on her. She didn't flinch, didn't look up. Most would have ducked instinctively under that kind of scrutiny. But she was beyond instinct, beyond fear. Her mind was precise, focused, a silent storm contained within a calm exterior. He crouched beside her, tilting his head to inspect the rifle. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his eyes caught something subtle, engraved coordinates and distances on the side of the Barrett, dates marking missions, distances that made the ordinary soldier's jaw drop. 3,247 meters. His voice broke the silence, low and rough. Is this real? She finally looked up, meeting his eyes with an unnerving calm. It's real, she said, her voice steady, almost too casual. He swallowed. You've been killing people from this distance. The words trembled, betraying both awe and disbelief. She nodded once, quietly. Her expression gave nothing away, but there was a flicker of something deeper, an echo of the solitude, the weight of decisions she had carried alone for years. Every shot she had taken had been a choice, a burden she bore silently. He leaned back, eyes narrowing as he processed what he had just learned. The room seemed to shrink, the distant sounds of the base fading into a hush. He was looking at someone he had underestimated for years, someone who had hidden a weapon of unimaginable precision behind the guise of paperwork and supply manifests. A sudden clatter from the far side of the armory snapped them both back to reality. One of the SEALs had dropped a magazine, and the sharp metallic ring echoed louder than expected. She barely moved, but the commander's gaze remained fixed on her, a mixture of suspicion and awe. You've been hiding this, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Why? She shrugged, returning to her cleaning, her movements fluid, almost meditative. Because no one asks for ghosts, and no one survives being noticed before they have to. He exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. Respect had crept into his eyes, mingled with fear. If she had been on the battlefield before, she had done things no one else could. Things he had only heard of in rumor, whispered around mess halls. Just as he opened his mouth to probe further, the shrill alarm blared through the base. Red lights flickered across walls, casting everything into jagged shadows. The hum of preparation became a roar of chaos. The SEAL commander's head snapped up, eyes wide. What the hell? She didn't wait. Her hands were already gripping the Barrett, her calm demeanor snapping into lethal focus. The quiet logistics officer was no longer a bystander. She was a weapon, and now the mission demanded proof. The lights of her quarters were dim, flickering slightly as if mirroring the unrest in her mind. She sat cross-legged on the cot, the Barrett resting across her lap. Outside, the night was alive with distant artillery fire and the soft hum of helicopters hovering above the valley. Every detail mattered, the wind, the darkness, the unpredictable chaos. But inside, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The SEAL commander's words from the armory echoed in her head. You've been killing people from this distance. It wasn't just incredulity in his tone. It was a mixture of fear, respect, and disbelief. 3,247 meters, a number so obscene it seemed unreal. She had memorized every decimal, every angle, every micro-adjustment needed to strike targets that others would swear were impossible. And she had done it, all while wearing the mask of a logistics officer, filing inventory reports and coordinating supply drops. She opened a worn leather notebook, its edges frayed from years of secrecy. Inside were sketches, coordinates, environmental notes, and mission debriefs written in tiny, precise handwriting. Each page told a story of patience, calculation, and cold efficiency. Each page was a confession she had never shared. The commander had followed her to the quarters, lingering in the doorway. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, a storm of questions and awe swirling behind his eyes. "Tell me one," he demanded quietly. "Pick a mission, just one, I need to understand." She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then chose the one that haunted her most. "It was in a valley near Kandahar," she began, her voice calm, almost clinical. "The target was an operative coordinating multiple attacks, impossible to reach unless you understand the wind, the light, the curvature of the earth, the hum of the air itself. You wait for hours, sometimes days. You become nothing and everything at once. And when the moment comes, you take it. One shot." The commander's jaw tightened, "And you made it." Her lips curved faintly. "Yes, but that one shot, I remember everything about it, every detail, every echo. It's not just the kill, it's the responsibility, the weight. It never leaves you." He swallowed hard, absorbing her words, feeling the gravity of what she had just admitted. He had trained men for years in high-risk operations, but he had never met anyone who could wield power like this with such quiet precision. For a moment they simply sat in silence. The hum of the bass outside, the distant explosion, the occasional crackle of radio chatter, all of it seemed to fade. Then the commander spoke again, his voice low, almost reverent. "You've been hiding this all this time." She nodded. "I have to. If people knew, I wouldn't survive long enough to choose when to strike. Some truths are dangerous not because of what they reveal, but because of who they attract." The weight of her words hung in the air. For the first time, the commander saw her not as a logistics officer, but as a force that could change the outcome of any mission, if she chose to act. Respect and fear mingled in his eyes. Suddenly, the radio crackled with an urgent alert. A reconnaissance drone had picked up movement near the eastern ridge, enemy forces advancing. She set the Barrett aside, slipping into a practiced readiness. Calm, measured, lethal. The commander's hand hovered near his holster. "They've spotted us." She shook her head. "Not yet, but soon, and when they do, they'll learn exactly why you don't underestimate ghosts." Her eyes flicked toward the rifle. The coordinates she had memorized, the calculations she had perfected, all of it was about to be tested in real time. The night air was sharp, biting at exposed skin. A low fog rolled across the valley, swallowing the terrain in ghostly shadows. She moved silently along the ridge, Barrett .50 cradled like an extension of her own body. Each step was deliberate, calculated, footfalls muffled by the damp earth. Around her, the SEALs spread out, scanning the darkness, unaware that the quiet logistics officer among them was about to rewrite everything they thought they knew about warfare. The commander had taken a position nearby but kept his distance, recognizing the strange, almost sacred space she entered when preparing to fire. He could feel the air change around her, the calm focus, the steadying rhythm of her breathing, the way she merged with the night itself. Then he saw it, a flicker of movement down the valley, a shadow stepping between two boulders. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the terrain with the precision of a surgeon. She adjusted the scope, whispering calculations under her breath, as if the wind itself were a living entity she had to negotiate with. "Target at 3,247 meters, she murmured. The commander froze, distance impossible, he thought, but he didn't interrupt. He had learned long ago that breaking her focus could cost lives. Her finger hovered lightly over the trigger. Time seemed to stretch. A bead of sweat trickled down her temple, unnoticed, irrelevant. The target, a high-value enemy operative coordinating attacks, was moving, unaware of the silent death observing from above. She exhaled slowly, synchronized with the rhythm of the valley's wind, and squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the night, a single thunderclap that seemed to pause the world. The operative dropped precisely where she calculated, a lifeless form crumpling onto the rocks below. The commander blinked, incredulous. "No," his voice trailed off, lost in awe. "Distance," he whispered. 3,247 meters, she replied calmly, already scanning for the next target. Her movements were fluid, almost invisible, as she adjusted the rifle, recalibrated, and read the shifting wind. The SEALs around them exchanged bewildered glances, whispers brushing against disbelief. Did she just? But there was no time to dwell. Movement flashed again, a squad of enemy combatants flanking from the ridge below. Her calm eyes widened fractionally as she calculated their trajectory. One breath, two breaths. The first shot flew, taking down a lookout before he could alert the rest. The second, third, fourth, each bullet precise, each impact silent but deadly. The commander's jaw tightened. He had trained men for decades, but never had he seen efficiency like this. Every target fell before she needed to aim fully, her mind anticipating positions, velocities, and timing as though the battlefield itself obeyed her. Yet as the last enemy went down, a distant whine cut through the night, a tracer round, piercing the fog and hissing dangerously close. Her heart skipped. Even the most experienced sniper can't escape every threat. Her calm exterior remained, but she felt it, the first real sign that her secrets had consequences beyond calculation. She shifted slightly, scanning rapidly, recalculating, her body coiled like a spring. "They've noticed," she said softly, almost to herself. "They know someone here, someone deadly." The SEAL commander's voice was low but tense. "Stay sharp, they're coming for you." Her eyes flicked to him briefly, a subtle acknowledgement of trust and a warning. She had lived her entire life in shadows, executing impossible shots with precision that defied belief. Now the stakes had changed. Every eye on the enemy side was tracing her presence. Every misstep could be fatal. And somewhere in the darkness, she knew it. Someone was watching her, calculating, preparing to challenge her skill. The night had deepened into something almost alive, thick with mist and shadows that shifted like restless spirits. She crouched behind a jagged ridge, Barrett .50 resting against her shoulder, her eyes scanning the valley with an almost preternatural focus. Every movement, every breath was measured. Every shadow could be death. The SEAL commander stayed a few meters away, kneeling behind a boulder, rifle in hand. His eyes kept darting to her, a mixture of awe, unease, and a growing understanding. The quiet officer he had dismissed as a logistics clerk had just rewritten the rules of what a human could do on a battlefield. Her first combat shot had been a revelation, but now the enemy knew someone lethal was on the ridge, and they were hunting her. The first sign came as a whisper of motion, a rustling along the valley floor. Not careless, not random, calculated. The enemy had realized her presence and was adjusting. She tilted the scope, reading the wind, the trajectory, the faint shimmer of movement across the rocks. One target, two targets. Her mind worked faster than anyone could follow. Shots rang out from below, tracers slicing the fog. The enemy had spotted her approximate location, but not her exact position. She fired once, then twice, each shot precise, each impact silent but deadly. Her calm voice cut through the tense silence, issuing quiet instructions into the radio. "Left flank, 3 o'clock, watch the ridge line." The commander felt the pulse of the night tighten. Every SEAL in their team understood instinctively. She wasn't just defending, she was dictating the battlefield. The enemy advanced, creeping along ridges, scrambling over boulders. Each approach was met with the almost surgical precision of her fire. Yet even she could feel the change. The subtle rhythm of her surroundings, which usually gave her control, now throbbed with threat. There was a predator within the predator. Someone on the other side understood her style, her rhythm, her ghost-like efficiency. They were learning, adapting, and she could feel their eyes on her. The commander leaned close, voice low, almost a growl. "They're adapting. Too many variables. You can't hold this ridge alone." She didn't respond. Her eyes tracked the enemy's shadow, recalibrating every shot, every movement. For her, the battlefield was a puzzle of wind, light, distance, and probability, and she was the only piece that truly mattered. Suddenly, a bullet thudded dangerously close, striking the ridge beside her. A spray of dirt and rock kicked up. She rolled instinctively, taking cover behind a boulder that had become her shield. Her fingers danced across the Barrett, preparing the next shot. She knew she had to act. Every second they hesitated, the enemy learned more. She whispered coordinates to the SEAL commander. "Set up suppressive fire, I'll guide from here." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" She gave him a faint nod. "I've survived worse, trust me." Minutes stretched like hours. The enemy moved with deadly caution, but she anticipated each step. One by one, targets fell, their silhouettes folding into the mist. Her calm, almost mechanical focus hit a storm beneath. Every shot was precise, yet every breath carried the weight of lives taken, of consequences she had long carried alone. Then from a ridge she hadn't accounted for, a movement too deliberate to ignore, a sniper. Someone with skill, someone trained, someone waiting for her. Her pulse quickened, not out of fear, but recognition. Finally, a worthy opponent. She exhaled slowly, fingers tightening on the trigger. The first strike in this new duel would define the night. The wind bit at her face as she crouched behind the ridge, Barrett .50 cradled against her shoulder. Every muscle was taut, every sense honed to the rhythm of the battlefield. But in the quiet between shots, memories of the desert came rushing back, memories she had buried deep for years. Years ago, long before she became the ghost in the SEAL's night operations, she had trained with someone the world had forgotten but who had refused to let her ordinary limits define her. A retired sniper, a recluse living in the empty stretches of Nevada desert, had taken one look at her steady hands and sharp eyes and said, "You either become invisible or you become dangerous. You can't be both." For months she had endured the desert's harsh sun, the nights that froze to bone, the endless repetition of the impossible, mile-long shots, wind patterns, mirages, and micro-adjustments no one else would attempt. He had taught her to see the unseen, to hear the imperceptible, to anticipate before action. "The bullet is not the weapon," he had said. "Your mind is, the rest is just physics." She remembered the first time she hit a target that seemed impossibly far, almost as if the universe had tested her patience. The rush had been intoxicating and terrifying, but her mentor didn't smile. He said, "You will carry every shot for the rest of your life. Do not mistake skill for glory." Now crouched on the ridge, those lessons guided her. The enemy sniper's presence loomed somewhere across the valley, a mirror image of the mentor's teachings, but twisted, lethal, aimed at her. Her calm exterior was back, a mask she wore like armor, but inside she traced every calculation, every probability like a chess master anticipating moves before they were made. The SEAL commander crouched near her, watching the ridge line. "You're calculating faster than I've ever seen anyone. This isn't just skill, this is something else." She gave a faint nod, eyes fixed through the scope. "It's not skill, it's preparation, training, and years of solitude learning how to survive when no one else is watching." The memories of the desert weren't just technique, they were survival. Her mentor had drilled into her that the world didn't reward talent. It rewarded patience, secrecy, and knowing when to act. Every shot fired tonight carried the echoes of those lessons, the patience to wait, the understanding of physics, the cold acknowledgement of consequence. The enemy sniper moved again, a shadow across the ridge, deliberate, precise. The air seemed to thrum between them, a quiet tension neither wanted to break until the first bullet spoke. She adjusted her scope, calculating the distance, the wind, the slope of the terrain, everything. Her fingers hovered on the trigger, almost caressing it. She felt a flash of gratitude toward her mentor. Without him, she would not have survived this long. Without his teaching, she would have been just another logistics officer, invisible and now exposed. The SEAL commander leaned closer. "They're closing in fast. You're facing someone who knows how you operate. What now?" Her eyes didn't leave the scope. "Now," she whispered, "I do what I was trained to do. I strike first, and I strike true." She exhaled slowly, aligning her sight on the enemy sniper. The valley seemed to hold its breath, the fog twisting, masking her presence, and at the same time revealing the inevitability of confrontation. Every lesson from her mentor, every hour in the desert, every impossible shot, all converged in this single, taut moment. The valley had become a cage of shadows and echoes. She moved silently, Barrett .50 cradled in her arms, each step measured, each breath controlled. Every instinct screamed that tonight was different. Tonight, the enemy wasn't just beyond the ridge. Someone from her own side had betrayed her. It started with a sharp, coded alert on the SEAL comms. "Perimeter compromised, coordinates confirmed, unknown sniper in play." Her pulse didn't spike. She was trained for fear, trained to control it, to let it sharpen rather than paralyze. But something about the tone, cold, precise, and unnervingly confident, made her pause. The voice wasn't enemy, it was insider. Someone knew her location, someone knew her record, and someone wanted her gone. She glanced at the SEAL commander. His jaw was tight, his eyes scanning faces, scanning positions, scanning her. Trust had always been scarce in battle, but now, under the eerie glow of distant fires, it became a dangerous luxury. Her mind raced. Only one person could feed them this information, someone who knew how I operate. The sound of a distant sniper rifle echoed, then another. She adjusted her scope, calculating trajectory and distance, trying to discern which bullet was truly hostile. The fog of war twisted, every shadow a potential assassin, every movement a threat. The SEAL commander whispered, tense and urgent, "Stay low, something's off. One of ours is giving them your coordinates." Her lips tightened. "I know," she said. Her voice was calm, almost serene. But underneath her mind was a whirlwind of strategy and countermeasures. Betrayal is worse than bullets. It's knowing someone wants to erase you before the fight even begins. She took a deep breath and reoriented herself. Each step forward, each adjustment of the rifle became a silent counterattack. She couldn't afford a mistake. The enemy was already calculating her moves, but the real danger was closer. Someone who understood her rhythms, her habits, her lethal instincts. The first tracer round zipped past her shoulder, tearing dirt from the ridge behind her. She fired back, hitting a distant enemy scout with pinpoint accuracy, but the realization cut deeper than any bullet. This was no ordinary battle. Someone on the inside had handed her life to the enemy. Her mind flashed to faces she trusted, faces she had relied on in countless operations. Doubt twisted through her. Any one of them could be the traitor. Her mentor's lessons echoed in her head. Survive first, trust second, kill only when you must. She whispered coordinates into the radio, guiding the SEAL team into suppressive positions, masking her location while they provided cover. Each shot she took was precise, efficient, deadly, but she had to conserve her energy. The real battle was not just outside, it was now internal, a web of deception and betrayal. Then over the radio came a chilling command in a voice she recognized but never expected. Neutralize the sniper. Priority, high-value target. Her stomach twisted. Someone had betrayed her to her own team, or at least someone with authority to override protocol. Her calm exterior remained, but her mind raced through contingencies, escape routes, and kill zones she could control. She had trained for the impossible, but betrayal added a new variable, unpredictability. The SEAL commander's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and urgent. They're coming for you, move or you die. She exhaled slowly, locking her eyes on the horizon, the enemy, and the unseen threat within their ranks. She couldn't afford panic. Every shot, every movement, every decision from this moment forward would be measured against survival, and the knowledge that someone close had handed her life to death. The night had become chaos incarnate. Bullets shredded the fog, ricocheting off boulders, thudding into the ridge where she crouched. Dirt and stones sprayed around her, but she remained calm, a still point amid the storm. The SEAL team was pinned down below, their shouts carried by the wind as enemy forces swarmed from multiple angles. Every sense she had honed in years of training screamed danger, but she didn't flinch. Her Barrett .50 felt heavier than ever, yet somehow lighter, an extension of her body, an instrument of survival. She scanned the valley. Every ridge, every shadow, every faint movement told a story. The enemy had advanced with brutal coordination. Snipers, infantry, and suppressive fire were closing in, and the betrayal from within the team still lingered, a silent predator behind her back, invisible but deadly. The SEAL commander's voice crackled in her earpiece. Retreat now, you can't hold the ridge. She ignored him, calculating trajectories and escape vectors in her mind. Retreat wasn't an option, not yet. The ridge offered vantage, it offered control. But she knew her position was no longer secret. The enemy had learned her patterns, and someone dangerous was actively targeting her from the inside. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. Every shot had to count. Every bullet needed to make a difference. She squeezed, and a sniper fell silently into the fog. Another bullet found a figure trying to flank the SEALs. The impossible distances she had mastered in training now became the difference between life and death. But then she spotted movement from a ridge she hadn't anticipated, enemy forces descending from behind, a calculated trap. Her heart raced for the first time in hours. This was more than skill, this was survival instinct, sharpened to a razor's edge. She made a split-second decision. Retreat would require precision and timing. The only path was a narrow ridge that led to a lower valley, dangerous, exposed, but offering a chance. She whispered coordinates to the commander. Cover the flank, suppressive fire now. He hesitated. You'll be exposed. I'll manage, she cut him off, eyes scanning, pulse synchronized with her breathing. Every movement was a calculation. She slid across the ridge, crawling when necessary, rolling when the enemy fired, and firing back only when the shot was guaranteed. Bullets ricocheted dangerously close, spraying dirt and sparks. Her mind traced wind patterns, distances, angles, the faint hum of air currents, everything her mentor had taught her. Then came the impossible, a sniper from the enemy side positioned to cut off her escape. The commander yelled over the comm, "She's in your line, take the shot." She exhaled slowly, remembering every lesson, every calculation. She fired. The enemy sniper fell, but there was no time to celebrate. Another squad was approaching, and the betrayal still loomed. Someone from the inside could strike at any moment. The ridge narrowed. One misstep meant plunging into a ravine. She measured every step. The fog twisted around her like a living thing, hiding her from view, and yet every sound was amplified: the snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, the echo of distant gunfire. Finally, she reached the lower valley, exhausted but alive. She took a brief moment to breathe, scanning the perimeter. The SEAL commander reached her moments later, breathless, eyes wide, with a mixture of disbelief and admiration. "I've never seen anything like that," he said, voice shaking. "How are you still standing?" She let the rifle rest lightly on her shoulder, a faint, tired smile forming. "Because survival is my duty, not glory." But even as she spoke, her eyes narrowed at the horizon. The valley was silent now, but she knew better. Someone had tracked her. Someone was still hunting. The valley had quieted, but the silence was deceptive. Smoke curled from distant fires, fog drifted low, and shadows clung to every ridge like living things. She stood in the lower valley, Barrett .50 resting against her shoulder, eyes scanning every ridge, every slope. The SEAL commander approached cautiously, awe and fear etched across his face. "You survived," he said, voice rough, almost a whisper. "I don't know how." She didn't smile. Her eyes remained fixed on the horizon. Survival isn't about skill alone. It's about preparation, patience, discipline, and knowing when to strike and when to vanish. The commander nodded slowly, finally beginning to grasp the magnitude of what he had witnessed. She wasn't just an officer. She wasn't just a sniper. She was a force operating beyond the normal boundaries of combat, a ghost who had turned the battlefield into her domain. He studied her eyes sharp. "Why keep it hidden? You could have led countless operations, killed countless targets with your record." She lowered her gaze, voice soft but resolute. "Because power without discretion is a curse. Every shot I take carries consequences I live with. Every target, every life, it leaves a mark. I protect, I prevent, I intervene. But I do it on my terms. I choose when, not the world." He understood, and yet unease lingered. "And the betrayal. Someone from inside tried to hand you over. Why survive this long, knowing the risk?" Her eyes flicked toward the fog. "Because ghosts survive when they remain unseen. And because leaving the world without control over my presence, that's the only way the wrong people win." Before the commander could respond, her phone buzzed sharply in her pocket. She ignored it at first, but the vibrations were insistent. With a slow, deliberate movement, she pulled it out. The screen flashed an anonymous message. "We know where you are. Are you ready for the next challenge?" Her lips curved faintly, a mixture of defiance and anticipation. The threat wasn't neutralized. The enemy wasn't gone. Someone or something had taken note of her record, her skill, and now sought to test her again. The SEAL commander's eyes narrowed, studying her reaction. "You're not worried." She shook her head. "Worry is for people who depend on luck. I depend on skill and preparation. And if they think they can catch me, they've underestimated me before, and that's always fatal." She turned her gaze back to the valley, scanning the darkness as if she could see through it. The fog shifted like smoke over fire, concealing movements, masking threats, hiding both friend and foe. And somewhere out there, someone was already calculating her next move. Her fingers brushed the Barrett stock. She lifted it, sighted the horizon, and exhaled. Calm, collected, lethal, the quiet logistics officer was now a legend in her own right, a record holder, a ghost, a hunter who chose the terms of her battle. The commander stepped beside her, voice quieter now, almost a murmur. "You're the most dangerous person I've ever met, and somehow the only one I trust to survive this night." She allowed herself a flicker of acknowledgement. "Trust isn't given," she said, voice firm. "It's earned, and tonight survival has earned it for now." The fog swirled around her, carrying with it the weight of the unseen. The mission was over, but the war was not. Her record was no longer just a secret. It was a beacon, a warning. And the world would soon learn that shadows could strike farther and faster than anyone imagined.